Hi guys! Today we continue where we left off last week with some blonde hair and a see-through dress, and finally finish this gorgeous piece of resin. First of all, thank you guys for all the support these last few weeks. I really appreciate it. If you have any ideas for videos you would like to see, leave them in the comment section. Now, I'm going to start with the hair, because I feel like it is the more pressing subject of these two. And I see, let's call it mistakes all the time. Of course it is your art, and you can paint however you like. But these are, in my opinion, the two most common mistakes when painting blonde hair. The first one is just using not the best colors. It kinda leads you to use the skin tones, in this case, but just, don't. When creating the palette for the blonde hair, you always want to stay within the ochre territory. In my case, I started with yellow ochre from Scale Color Artist as my base coat and as well as my midtone. And immediately after that, I threw away all I said so far and went for a skin tone. In this case, I use GW Galliman Flash, but only for my shadows. The G-Man's Flash is dark enough for shadows, but also has some pink into it, so it complements the main feature of the mini, the skin. But I promise, this is the last time for the skin tones. From here, it is just highlighting. And here we approach the second mistake. And I feel like it is more severe one. You should not highlight the hair the same way you would anything else. So unless you want, noodles on your mini, don't do that. Hair just doesn't work that way, unless you are aiming for that NSYNC look. So instead, I place the highlight more as a corona-like shape around the head, with the top of the head being the most reflective place on the mini, so is the highlight with the highest value going almost into pure white territory. And from here, I leave a little bit of space to create the contrast these high values usually have, and then continue with my first highlight to follow the sketch. In this stage, I do not try to aim for the definition and every single hair, but more of a sketch of the values, going through the full long hair she has. Of course, with these waves I do highlight as I usually do, but it is just because of the shape of the sculpt. With this approach, I continue through the second and third highlight. And now, it is time to give the hair a little bit of definition. Here, I basically follow the sketch as a primary source for the next steps, and try to blend the different highlights into each other, respecting the different values of underpaint. Basically, in the shadows I highlight with the midtone or my first highlight, in the midtones with the first and second highlight, and in the high points with the bone white with my highest value. And this time, I do try to respect the sculpt and proceed with the singular brush strokes, giving it the realistic texture. Also, I do not just stay within the values I set in the sketch. I try to blend all the values together with these lines, so the hair looks more realistic. It is as tedious as it looks, so just put on some podcast or audiobook. Not thinking about the brush strokes, and just stop when you feel like you are happy with the results. The second issue I would like to discuss today is a little bit more difficult. It is the case of painting a see-through dress. When it comes to this theme, the problem is more theoretical than the execution itself. And I apologize in advance if this won't make any sense. But basically, you want to create a skin that is covered by a filter of fabric with different colors. And of course the fabric color will tint the skin tone and push it into different tones. You have to also add the factor that not every part of the space is translucent the same way. here you have to think about the values in a different context than normally. So just to make it simple, the part that is folded in is the part most pressed against the skin, and the parts that are pointed outwards are not in the contact with the skin at all. It does not mean that in the color mix there won't be any skin tones, but it means that in these parts the amount of skin tone is the most limited. And in the folded in parts is the filter created by the fabric least visible. God, I hope it makes sense. So with that in mind, I decided to wet blend these two values just to minimize the amount of smoothing needed. It still took multiple layers wet blended together before I was comfortable with the results. But working wet on wet gives you the freedom to basically make any mistake and immediately recover from it and repair it. Also, it creates this smooth gradient, making the scene somewhat realistic. Another important thing to remember is that skin is naturally glossy, but when covered with the fabric, it loses some of its glossiness and becomes a little bit desaturated. So the highlight of the skin parts placed in the deepest folds should not match the highlights on the naked skin. So I'm not pushing it all the way into the yellow and greenish territory. And I stay within the pink, the Caucasian skin tones I used for the skin. And the highlights on the fabric parts are basically achieved by the same process of adding the grays and a little bit of a higher skin tone in the mix. It's quite hard to talk about the process you see on the video, because it was more circle than linear. And I went through different mixtures of skin tones and yellows and grays and pinks and all that kind of stuff multiple times. Thinking of it now, the process was kinda messy. But I'm quite happy with the result. Especially when it's the first time I tried something like that. The last thing that remains is to give the cloth some texture and some definition in some of the parts. I am super happy with the results, and it gave me a little impulse to try these higher level projects more often. I hope you like it as well. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more content. Or try some of the playlists up here. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.